I had a unique opportunity to sit down with my sister in arms, my battle buddy. She's going to tell her story. That story is coming up next. Trust and believe. Everybody to episode 136 of the Nomad Cast, and I'm here with a special guest, my sister in arms, a woman in Christ, a mother, a wife. Everything that you talk about that's greatness, sunshine, that is her. I want you to introduce, soon to be retired. You to retire as a first sergeant or master sergeant?
A first sergeant.
Retired first sergeant. You a freaking E8. That's all that matters to me.
Yes,
retired
sir.
Freaking first sergeant, Mrs. Jones. What's going on, ma'am?
All is well. Thank you for having me, DA. It's so good to catch up with you.
Yes.
Awesome.
Man, I tell you, our friendship has spread. We met in 2008, because I just came back from Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you were the first person I met in the unit. I arrived there probably about 1630, 1700. You were sitting at the desk, and I was a staff sergeant. You was a staff sergeant. You was like, hello. And I'm like, I'm the new staff sergeant. You said, where you coming from? I'm like, first of all, no. I was like, Korea. And she said, well, I'm the ammo, because you was doing ammo.
Mm-hmm.
And you was like, well, Sergeant Major ain't here. Because I think she was a major at the time, Major Lurch.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Major Lurch.
You like, everybody isn't here. Just come back tomorrow. And you was the only one in the office. I'm like, all right. Okay. All right. But then our friendship, man, they tell you blossom. Spent that time at 593rd. Went to freaking deployed to Kuwait. So enough about all that. I want you to tell your story. So how's everything going?
Everything is going well. I can't complain. God is still good. He's still
Amen.
in the blessing business. He still sits high and looks low. So all praises to the Most High.
That's it.
I've been fortunate enough to make it through this Army career with 23 years, 6 months, and 11 days.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Excited to look to move into the next chapter of my life. We just bought a new home in San Antonio.
Sweet.
So just trying to, unpack and transition at the same time. It's been pretty stressful. It was a stressful summer.
Yeah, it's almost like, you build, that old term we used to use, building an airplane in flight.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
It could be very stressful.
Yes.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about the upbringing. How did everything start with you?
Okay, so I am the oldest on my mother's side and my father's side. So with my mother, it's me and one other sister. And then with my, on my dad's side, it's me, a brother, a sister, a brother. So girl, boy, girl, boy. So I'm the oldest on both sides.
Oh, you the boss then.
Yeah, exactly. I'm everybody's mom.
Right. I know that. I know that.
Exactly. I've always been the mother hen. Even since I was, 8 years old, I've always been the mother hen. So that has not changed. Not even through the military, I was still mothering everybody.
Yep. That is true. That is facts.
But I came from a military background. I am actually third generation military. I'm the only one that went Army. No, excuse me. I had one aunt that went Army. Everybody else was Air Force, both sets of grandparents, the whole 9 yards. My mother retired from the Air Force, and everything. So that's how, I came about going into the military. But I was born and raised in Lexington, Kentucky. Bluegrass. Kentucky. Go UK. I should have put my UK shirt on because I was home last week, so I should have put my UK shirt on and stuff. So that's why I was born and raised at, did college for 2 years, and then decided to try something new.
And that's what we strive to do, is try something new, try something better. I want to say something before we get to the enlistment part. So I retired from Fort Knox.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Sometimes I didn't even know I did, but I remember I left Korea and came to Fort Knox, and I'm like, what in the blank is this? And everybody was like, oh, well, back in the day, used to have the tankers and this and that and the third. Yeah, and that's a true story. And I got to my unit, and that assignment in Korea was so fast paced.
Right.
And when I got to Fort Knox, it was like, man, Sergeant, shoot, man, if you ain't got nothing, you can leave. I'm like, dude, it's like 10:48. They told me that like a couple times, and I was fighting it. I go visit my wife at work, and she's like, dude, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to stay there? Or are you trying to go home? Go to Kroger. All right, so let's talk about, we talked about your upbringing. Let's talk about enlisting in the Army. What led you to that recruiting station? And more importantly, what led you to raise that right hand?
Okay. So when I was in high school, I was in Air Force JROTC, and I actually wanted to fly fighter jets. Yeah. So after I graduated, like I said, I went to college for 2 years, and then I was like, okay, I want to go in the Air Force. So the Air Force, they would not take me as a single parent because I was not married at the time, and they told me that I would have had to have given up total custody of my 2 daughters, and I was like, I'm not having that. So let me go next door to the Army.
Right.
So the Army took me, and this was back in, I first enlisted in June of '98, and I was in the delayed entry program, the DEP program. You know a little bit about that, being a former recruiter.
Yes, Lord, I do. Yes, Lord.
Yes. So the Army, they was like, yeah, that's like, you can keep your kids. You just have to give, guardianship to someone while you're in training. So that's how I ended up in the Army, because the Air Force wouldn't take me as a single parent, and it was their loss because I had an amazing Army career. So I went in and raised my hand. I did basic training at Fort Jackson. I did my first AIT was I was a 27 Tango Avenger. So I went to Redstone Arsenal for that. Yeah, right. The 27 series is the Avenger, the MLRS, Patriot, Toad, Dragon, all of that. So I was the missile side of the electronics portion of that. So that was my first duty station. I mean, first MOS. And then my first duty station was Fort Hood, Texas, 704th Main Support Battalion.
When were you in Fort Hood?
When?
Yeah, what years?
From 99, April of 99 to April of 01.
Because I always try to figure out if we cross paths. Our military world, we're big, but it's small.
We're small, right?
Because we left Germany November 02, and we got to Fort Hood December 02. So everyone has a Fort Hood story, and Lord knows we can go days for that. You was at Fort Hood. What was that first duty station like?
Actually mine, I don't really remember a whole lot, because shortly after I got there, I had got married right after AIT. And so when I got to Fort Hood, like my first year, I was pregnant basically. So it wasn't a whole lot going on for me, obviously. And then after I had the baby and then went back to work, I came down on orders for Korea. So my Fort Hood time, I don't have the stories that everybody else has about Fort Hood. Fort Hood, it wasn't a bad duty station for me, but it wasn't really a memorable duty station for me.
I got you.
Other than it was hot and it was 90 degrees, at 6:00 in the morning going to PT and humid.
Yes. and that was my first time ever being in Texas. And again, we had came from Germany. And we're in Texas now, you're getting used to driving and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, it's so freaking hot here, and it's like winter time.
Right.
We talk about Fort Hood stories. I have one just real quick before we move to the second duty station. I don't know if you heard, it was an incident. This had to happen like in 03. It was a female specialist. She was the leader of a gang, right? The first sergeant was a member of the gang, but she was subordinate to the specialist in that rank structure, in the gang rank structure.
Wow.
So and I was on freaking CQ that day. So she had went to the first sergeant office like, hey, we got a meeting tonight, this and that and the third at 9 o'clock, 2100. So the first sergeant said, well, I got a meeting, with the sergeant major. So the sergeant major trumps anything that, we trying to do. So the special's like, hold on. What we trying to do, you part of this too. You are part of this alliance, right? So the special's like, don't be here when I get back. Specials leave out. And the first sergeant, she went to the meeting, whatever. She came back. She's like, you wasn't at the meeting. She said, well, I told you I had to go meet with the freaking sergeant major. So she ended up putting 2 in her freaking chest and shot her.
What?
Yes, I remember. I was on freaking duty when that happened.
Wow.
And that's when, that's why everyone, they talk about these Fort Hood stories. I'm like you, I don't have a lot of memorable moments. Out of all the duty places I've ever been, that ranks like below the below.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it was always something. So
yeah, you hear about the drug raids and everything at Fort Hood, but I wasn't I didn't witness any of that. You heard about the sex rings and stuff like that. I didn't witness any of that. I didn't have the crazy barracks life or anything because I wasn't in the barracks.
Right.
So, yeah, but that's 2 to the chest.
Yeah, I remember that, man. I was like, and I left Germany for this?
Right?
Because I had re-enlisted for freaking Fort Hood. And I'm like, shoot, can I get y'all can have this little $5,000 back. Can I go back?
You should have chopped your right hand off of that.
Man, I'm telling you. All right, so we're at Fort Hood. Nothing memorable. Typical Army installation. It's huge. You can get lost. What was that second assignment? Where did you go after that?
Second assignment was 70 Deuce, Korea.
Yes. So, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm good. Go ahead.
So you said 70 Deuce. Last time I was in Korea, I think 70 Deuce was disbanded, if I'm not correct.
Last I heard, it was, yes.
And that was up at Camp Casey.
It was.
And it was buck freaking wild.
It was.
Please proceed.
So, okay. So, I actually was the designated walker because I was the one that I drank the least.
Yeah.
Everybody else.
Yep.
So I made sure everybody made it through the gate, at curfew and nobody was falling over in a turtle ditch somewhere.
Yes.
So yes, Korea was nice though. I really enjoyed it. I had a great section sergeant at the time. Staff Sergeant Michelle Williams. I don't think I have any pictures of her, but she actually began to shape my career as a future NCO because I went to Korea as a specialist and I left there promotable. So she actually was the first one to really start molding me into the NCO that I became. She took us out on the economy. We traveled around Korea and experienced the Korean culture. I had some really good friends in Korea. So I don't have anything negative to say about Korea, and even the not so good things like standing on top of a hill in the cold rain, guarding the side of this mountain in the field, even that was still a positive memory for me. So I loved Korea. We were actually supposed to go back to Korea when COVID hit, but we didn't.
I remember that.
Yeah. So man, Korea, yes, I loved Korea. Korea.
Everyone has their own experiences. Like you, I was Korea. I did 2 tours in Korea, and just like you, I remember the stand to and the stuff that we don't like doing. But I remember being around that impactful leadership, like you say, those men and women that shape you. Hey, you are the leader of tomorrow. Yes. Here's what you need to do. Here's the tools that you can use. It just makes you a better person, better leader. And those experiences are rare. And it's like, I don't know if you agree with this, but it seems like those experiences are more frequent overseas than they are in the States.
They are. And I think, especially with Korea, because it was, I was in Korea at a time where you didn't take your families.
Yeah.
So it was just the soldiers. So, we live together, we eat together, we do everything together. So it was more, we didn't have those those family dynamics that we had to rush home to, and and things like that. So, and it was those after hours, after the flag went down and you're still in the office, and yes, we're working late, but that's where the real mentorship and the real guidance became, that's where that started to manifest. So I definitely agree with it. The leadership being overseas versus stateside. Yes,
it is. And you said something that was critical. Dependent restrictive tours. Like the first time I went to Korea, it was at Humphreys from 07 08, right before I got to Lewis. I wasn't authorized to have my family there, which was okay because at the time you didn't know nothing about Korea. I just go ahead and lean forward while y'all stay in the States. And the last time I was in Korea, 17 to 18, I was at Casey. It was a dependent restrictive tour where they had moved all the families down to Humphreys and Youngson and all these other places.
Right.
But I remember, like you said, the late nights, hey, let's come in on Saturday for 3 or 4 hours and work on something for this briefing next week. Or we got a field op next month. Hey, we need to start putting things in place now. We don't do that. You do it in the States, but it's more of a, man, Saturday, I'm supposed to go to the game or whatever.
Right.
But when you on that peninsula, where you going? And then if you go somewhere, shoot, I got to be back by, freaking 23:59.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? That's no, every senior leader, I've never heard a senior leader, E7, E89 says they dislike Korea because those advantages, those opportunities, because those sergeant majors are usually there 24 months, sometimes even 36 months.
Right.
So you sit there and you sit in the office with them, and they almost dehumanize themselves in a sense. Like, hey, I remember coming up as a staff sergeant and so on and so forth. Right. I can get on rambling about Korea. Let me stop.
No, you good. You're good, Battle. You good.
So Fort Hood, Korea. That third assignment, where do we go?
Oh, Jesus. To the Marne Express, 3rd Infantry Division.
Please tell me what's that, because I hear, it's the greatest thing ever.
It is not.
Let me hear it.
It is not. So, and with my experience, it's like you either have a good location, a good unit, not both.
Yep.
But this time, 3rd ID, it's like I didn't like the unit order location.
I ain't like nothing. Can I go?
No, exactly. The only positive part about 3rd ID was I was only an hour and a half from Jacksonville, and that's where my home church is.
Gotcha.
So I could travel, every week to go to church. So, that was probably the positive thing about it. But I was in 3rd ID twice, once in 03 and then again in 2017, which is when I did my first sergeant time. So we'll leave the 2017. We'll go for 2003 right now.
We'll march through that.
So so the 2003, I get there in April of 02, excuse me, 02. Then I go to PLDC, Primary Leadership Development Course.
Old school right there.
For us old, exactly.
Old
for old soldiers. Because like I said, I left Korea promotable, so I went to PLDC, and my first sergeant, at Fort Stewart the first time, he was actually my drill sergeant when I was in AIT.
Wow.
So he was already familiar with me and my work ethic and things like that. And then a couple of the other soldiers that was in the company, we had went to AIT together and everything. So it was all right when I first got there. I got there that summer. Then I pent E5 that August, right after I graduated from PLDC. So things was good.
Yeah.
But then they want to start acting crazy over in Iraq.
Yes. Yeah.
So
yes.
I'm like, I just got back from Korea.
I ain't trying to do nothing. Not at all.
As a new E5, I go to my platoon sergeant, Sergeant Duff. He's first sergeant retired Duff now. So I go to him and I'm like, okay, what's going on? Are we getting ready to go somewhere? And he was like, no, don't worry about that. We're good. Okay, we're good.
You saying that?
Exactly. So in December, I went to go visit my then husband because he was in Germany. He had PCS to Germany when I was PCSing from Korea. So it was before they really honored the Married Armies Couples program. Yeah. So I went and visited him in Germany, and then I seen that they were talking about sending troops to Iraq or to Kuwait. So I called back to staff duty and I'm like, hey, I'm in Germany. Do I need to, get back sooner than what my leave is up? And they're like, no, you're good. But I'm sitting here watching CNN and CNN saying, no, you need to get your butt back.
Yes.
See, how CNN gonna know before we know, right?
Yep.
So I get back and I got like 28 messages on my answer machine. This is when we still had house phones.
Yeah.
And there's you need to get back. You need to get back. We're getting ready to deploy. So I get back and it's like a week later, we're ramping up to go. Third ID, we're ramping up to go. Now, mind you, I had been back from Korea about 7 months and just getting back from visiting in Germany. Yep. And I was a geographical single parent.
Yeah.
So I had my 2 girls and I had my youngest son, who was, Branchick was three at that time.
Oh, wow.
So I go to my command. I'm like, okay, I'm going to need some time to get my family care plans together.
Exactly.
And everything, because my mother, who was my family care plan provider, was still active duty Air Force. Okay. And she did all the scheduling and stuff like that for aircraft. So wherever her planes went, she had to go. So, and that was my bonus mom. And I'm only making a difference because I'm getting ready to talk about my biological mom.
No, I got you.
Okay. So, and my biological mom had just been diagnosed with cancer, had just finished like chemo treatments and everything. So I'm stuck. Yeah. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with my kids? So I had to pull my family care plan. I'm like, I can't just leave my kids with anybody.
Exactly.
My husband was overseas and neither one of my mothers could take him.
Right.
So I got out. Actually March 21st, the day they crossed the border is the day I finaled out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's the day I finaled out.
We spent 2-3 years together in the same unit. Me, you, and Zarzar had numerous conversations. I don't remember that.
Yeah. Wow. Probably not.
Wow.
Yeah. But yep. So I got out and I actually went into the Air Force Reserves. I did that for 3 years. I did that for 3 years before I came back active duty. Stuff. So yep.
You talk about a supreme transition. And that's the thing. Kudos to you for even, leaning forward with that, because it takes a lot of heart. It takes a lot of spiritual well-being, spiritual sacrifice. Lord, is this the right thing to do? Yes. Show me those doors. Where are those doors? Where are you at? We all get to that point. And it's like, he just continues to lead. And one thing I've admired so much about you in the years we've been knowing each other, but you've never wavered on faith. Never.
Oh, thank you.
Never. As long as never wavered on faith. I remember, and now just a little side note, I remember when we were stationed, when we were deployed in Kuwait, Zia be sitting right here. I'm sitting there. You'll come in, you walk in real fast. Everybody knew LJ was coming in. You walk in, and it was like a little steps to where our little back row. All you hear, don't. Blessings, everyone. Y'all not gonna say good morning? I'm like, dang, girl. But I've always, me and Z even talked about that. You've never wavered on faith. So that's something, kudos to you on that. Never.
Yes, definitely. Praise God. It's definitely, he's been my cornerstone. Yeah. He's been my cornerstone. Even when things look, bleak, gotta,
you do
have faith, because without faith, it's impossible to please God. So
amen to that, sister. Amen.
Into the Air National Guard as patient administration.
Yep.
And then I stayed in Hinesville. And I was like, so I did that, and I had started working at like a little thrift store. And I took the test to be a correctional officer. So I was going through the hiring process for that. So I became a correctional officer at Coastal State Prison in Savannah, Georgia. Yep. So I did that for the 3 years that I was in the Guard. I also did I was a correctional officer, and then I worked part-time at this little snow bid store because I was a single parent at that time, because we had gotten a divorce. Me and my first husband had gotten a divorce. So I was working 2.5 jobs basically, and still doing my thing, raising my children, and just
keeping the lights on. Keeping the lights on, man.
Definitely.
So after all that, being a CEO, doing all those things, working 85 jobs, doing all that, what was in your mindset? Did you say, you know what, I can continue to do this, I'll be okay? Or when did it get to the point where you say, you know what, I got to make a pivot in my life?
I went into corrections because I thought it was going to be like a paramilitary environment. I thought it was going to have that same like discipline and structure. So that's why I chose that. And it didn't. It just didn't.
Yeah.
So, but I did it for 3 years because I was like, maybe, Iraq could calm down a little bit and I'll be able to go back in.
Yeah.
And so that's really what happened after it kind of simmered out a little bit, and they wasn't trying to put everybody in as fuelers and truck drivers.
Yeah. Yep.
Because that's what they was trying to put everybody in.
Sure
if
was.
It was a male infantry or 18 X-ray. And if you was a female, either a fueler or a truck driver. That's what they needed.
They used to call them what was that? Star MOSs, they used to say back in the day. Star MOSs.
Exactly. Star MOSs, yes. And because I had tried to go back in, I was like, put me in as an MP. I'm coming from, corrections. Put me in as an MP. You don't even really have to fully train me, And they wouldn't even, I had the line scores, everything. And they were like, no, we want you to. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. You know me. I'm going to tell you what I'm not going to do.
Trust and believe that. Trust and believe that.
So I went ahead, and that was in 2006. So I actually went into after I finished with the Air National Guard, I went into the Army Reserves. That's what it was, Army Reserves. And I did finance for them for a year, and then I came back active duty May 1st of 07.
Okay.
Is when I came back active duty. Yep. So right before we met.
so testing my memory. So after you came back on active duty, that first assignment was at Fort Lewis, right?
It was Fort Lewis.
So did you request that, or did the Army say, hey, go here?
Kind of both. That little dream sheet that they give you. Fort Lewis was actually on mine because I had never been to the West Coast. Yeah. I had been down south and everything. So I was like, let me see what, something different. I've always been adventurous and want to try new things. So I actually did put Fort Lewis on my dream sheet. So yeah.
So I was at Fort Lewis from 08 to 10. So that's 2 years. One of those years we was freaking eating sand for a year. So I never really got to experience Fort Lewis. My wife was like, oh yeah, we went to here, and I'm like, shoot, man, I don't remember that. And that was one of those duty assignments. Going to Fort Lewis, it was new. It was almost majestic. Greenery. You could smell.
Beautiful.
It was just something about that air. It's kind of one of the things you got to kind of be there to get what we're talking about. It was one of those peaceful places, but it was busy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Very.
And one thing I always remember about Fort Lewis is two things, and then we'll move on.
Okay.
The first thing was when I checked in, and I don't know if they told you this too, when I in process, the little processing center that used to be on Main side. The guy, there was a staff sergeant, he was like, look out the window. So we all look out the window. He said, what do y'all see? And I was like, freaking Mount Rainier. He said, yeah. He said, if Mount Rainier erupted, you got 75 minutes to evacuate. Oh, by the way, I-5 is the only interstate.
Yep.
So, we looking around like, gosh, dog, can I go somewhere where it's just safe? It's always something. And then another one, remember Sergeant Major Moore?
Of course I remember Sergeant Major Moore. Thomas Moore.
Oh, Thomas freaking Moore. I think he's in Italy now, too.
I seen him. He was in Germany. And he had came down to Italy for something when I was stationed in Italy.
Because he's a civilian. He's retired now, right?
He should be retired because we're retired. So he should.
I think he should, because he was already 99 years old then anyway. But I remember him. Remember he used to tell everybody, hey, y'all need to leave. It's like 1600. Y'all need to go home. Y'all need to go home. And, I'm brand new staff sergeant. I'm trying to lean in. Like, I want to, you know how it is. We trying to make an impression. Mm-hmm. I want to be like, hey, this dude just got here. He ready to go. But he was like, hey, I'm telling you to go right now. Where do you live at? And at the time, we lived in Lacey, which is like, 30 minutes away.
Right.
So he's like, you better go. You ain't gonna beat traffic. I'm like, I'm good. Don't worry about it. Man, because we worked on
North Fort.
You get ready to come out that little that street, and you get ready to make that right. I-5 don't look like nothing but a freaking parking lot. And I'm like, oh, that's what he was meaning. I didn't get home till like an hour later. I always remember those two moments in freaking Fort Lewis. The one about the mountain, and it's always freaking busy because that's the only true freeway interstate in that area.
Right.
Is I-5.
Yes.
So I'm sure you got any of the Fort Lewis memories before we get on the plane to go to Kuwait.
Yeah, that's cool. I loved Fort Lewis. It was so nice, and then like I don't know, it's like the atmosphere, like you said, when you think about it, you have to experience to know what it is, and because people, they're like, well, it rained there so much. I'm like, but it's not thunderstorms like down south. It's misty rain, and that does not stop nothing. We still get out and do stuff.
Yeah, you still go out and do things.
And stuff, but I loved, we hiked Mount Rainier while we were there.
Awesome.
I actually got into doing Spartan races when I was the mud runs and things like that. I actually got into that while I was at Fort Lewis, and it was really nice. Our team, the 3 shop, man, we had a really good team. I mean, Colonel Lurch, Sergeant Major Moore, they were awesome. Master Sergeant DeShazer, Master Sergeant Siegfried. I don't know if you remember Master Sergeant DeShazer or not, but he didn't go down range with us because he ended up having some medical issues.
Yep, I do remember him.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember
talked to him a couple of months ago.
Really? I remember Master Sergeant Siegfried.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, he shows up on my timeline every now and
Does
then.
He? I remember him.
So, but
you talk about that 3 shop. It was great, but I don't think it really reached its true pinnacle until we went to Kuwait.
Kuwait, right.
Go ahead and lead us into Kuwait.
Yeah. So Kuwait, yes, Kuwait. Well, y'all went downrange before I did because I was in BNOC.
That's right.
Yep, I was in BNOC, so I came.
Was.
I think I came about maybe 2 or 3 weeks after you all did, and everything. So the talk and everything was already set up. Yeah. And it was just me and like maybe 2 or 3 other soldiers that had left together. That was my first deployment. I did a tour in Korea, but that was my first, combat deployment.
Yeah.
And stuff. And I tell people like Kuwait spoiled me, because if this is what all combat tours is supposed to be like, I'll go, because Kuwait was all right. It wasn't bad at all.
That's when you talk about those moments in time that shapes you as a leader, shapes you as a person, shapes you as far as these are things you need to do to be successful. You talk about a staff sergeant here, Zarzar, staff sergeant right here, me, a staff sergeant, you. Then we had another staff sergeant, Smith, Julia Smith, right? Then we had another staff sergeant, freaking Lavelle. Remember Lavelle?
Yep.
He was the 92 Yankee. I remember we used to all sit and we would talk about, what do we need to do to make sergeant first class? We can't just sit here and hope and pray, because you can hope and pray, but you need some action.
Right,
everything
exactly.
else is just
faith without works is dead.
Exactly. And I remember we all sat back there, especially me, you, and Z, and we would we do our little missions, and we'll sit down. What should we do? Drill sergeant, freaking recruiting. And I tell you, it's a blessing. This guy was a recruiter. I was a recruiter. You was a freaking drill sergeant. The whole point is that you talked about this earlier with one of your mentors. That is sometimes the people can shape you, the situations shape you, but also the assignments shape you.
Yes, definitely.
And that assignment definitely shaped me for, ranks down the line. Before you get started, because I feel you get ready to say something, let me tell a quick little story right quick. I know people like, gosh, dog, are you interviewing yourself or somebody else? So I told Z this. He said he didn't remember. Do you remember that time I submitted my warrant officer packet? Okay.
I do remember, because I was believing and claiming it with you that you weren't going to be going.
Look, and I remember I told Z, I said, now I was telling y'all, I ain't going to Kuwait.
Yes,
y'all can go ahead. I'm going to freaking to warrant officer school. Oh yeah, I was. Remember I had bought the I bought the warrant officer rank and put it up under my collar and all that.
That's what we used to do.
Yeah. And you was like, DA, you going? I'm standing with you. And I was like, I ain't going to Kuwait, LJ. You're gonna have to tell me what Kuwait's about. And Sergeant Major Moore and the rest of the CMs, they get that manning meeting together. And at that time, we didn't know nothing about manning and none of that stuff. And so Z was in the meeting. He was like, dude, you going to freaking Kuwait? And I'm like, maybe as a warrant officer. I ain't got no school. There ain't nothing been approved. I'm talking about as a warrant officer. And so I ended up finding out that I wasn't selected. So now, they use that term, you got to eat crow.
Right.
And Sergeant Major's like, yeah, I heard you didn't get selected. I'm like, well, gosh, dog, how you know? And I was like, because I don't want to be nobody's platoon, so I don't want to do no Sergeant First Class. I didn't want to be no master. I wanted to be a freaking warrant officer. But going back to what we always talked about, faith. The Lord knew you don't need to be here. This is where you need to be. It may take you a few years to realize that. So again, we talk about the situations, the people, the circumstances shape who you are.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
So we left Kuwait.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah. We left Kuwait.
All right. We're back in Fort Lewis. Did you go to drill sergeant school right after that?
No, I didn't go to drill sergeant school right after that. I did an interpost transfer to 1st Special Forces Group. So you all left for recruiting, and I went over there with them. And I played with them boys for a little bit, and then I went to, and I actually was DA selected for drill sergeant school. Yep. So I did 2 years with group, jumped out of planes for a little while, and then I went to drill sergeant school.
So I definitely want to, because I know you spend a lot of time jumping out of plane. I want to talk about that, but I want to touch on the drill sergeant, DA selected. What was that like for you when you got to Fort Jackson and you realized I am here to perform, to excel, to train, learn how to train, and all those things they teach you? When did it get to the point where you realize, am I doing the right thing? Did you ever get to a point to that, or you already knew that you were supposed to be there?
So I believe that, God puts us in certain situations for a reason. And I didn't know what that reason was for drill sergeant school, because I'm like, I am too much of a mother hen. Come on, let's get along, hold hands, sing kumbaya. I was like, I think I'm a little bit too soft to be a drill sergeant. But what I realized, the time that I was on the trail, which is what we call our drill sergeant time, that every personality has a place. And with my platoon, when I first got there, it was my senior drill was infantryman, and then my other drill was combat engineer, and then it was me. And so we tried to have one female drill per platoon, but it didn't always work out like that. Right. So at one point I was the only female drill in my company. But I realized that though I may not be, the infantryman and may be able to, land nav over any and everything, there's still something I have to offer these soldiers. Exactly. And stuff like that. So I had a different spin on it. But drill sergeant, that taught me how to be a leader. and I learned things not even in drill sergeant school, because drill sergeant school doesn't teach you how to be a drill sergeant. It teaches you how to navigate the regulations, how to break down modules, how to teach them. But it doesn't teach you, those back alley things that you need to know. You cannot learn those until you are actually entrenched in in the training environment. And so there were some things I would have to pull my drill to the side. I'd be like, okay, I need you to refresh me on this right quick, because there are a lot of things that that we just didn't learn, especially being on staff. We didn't learn a lot of these things, or those tangible skills that if you don't use them, you'll lose them. I remember I was like, shoot, I had to have one of the guys show me how to load a radio, because I'm like, how long it's been since I loaded a radio?
Exactly. Those are those things that it's almost like what's that old saying, like with math, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. Exactly.
Perishable
skills, that's what it
is.
Perishable skills.
That's exactly what it is.
So when and I definitely want to continue with that, being a drill sergeant, did you feel, and I want to make sure I'm very respectful when I say this, but I think we probably need to say it, did you feel any pressure or more pressure being black woman, just being a black woman? Did you feel pressure like, I have to do extra just to be even with everybody else?
As a drill sergeant?
Yeah,
no.
As a drill sergeant.
No,
okay.
I did not. We had, and on the trail, we always tell new drill sergeants that your battles on the trail will make or break your time.
Yeah.
And it really will. And the group of 12 drill sergeants that I had, or 11 drill sergeants that I had alongside me during my time at Fort Jackson, was amazing. We all looked out for each other. We didn't have to worry about drill sergeants coming in like sloppy drunk or not pulling their weight or anything like that. We had an amazing first sergeant and commander, Major Jew, God rest his soul, and Sergeant Major Reeves. We had an amazing command team. Captain Wade, he's probably Major Wade now, but we had a really good company command team. We had really good drill sergeants, alongside me. So it was great. It was great. The only thing about the trail was it was physically tiring.
Right.
But we made it through. We made it through.
We persevered.
And if you look through my pictures and stuff, you'll see where we caught each other sleeping and carrying on.
I know. I remember them. I used to make the comments. I remember that. I just want to make sure with that comment, the question I asked about being a black woman, that was not to be disrespectful, because I know a lot of black women, and as well, there's been drill sergeants and drill instructors in other branches. They always say if they felt they had more pressure, depending on who you with. You said you was around supporting cast. I would imagine those people that we're talking about were around unsupportive people. Hey, it's the 3 infantry guys. We know everything. You know nothing. So they feel they got to do even more just to be even with everybody. So that was the whole intent of that question.
When I became a senior drill sergeant, I had my drill sergeants up under me. I had 3 infantry drill sergeants that worked for me.
Got you.
And I never felt like that. I mean, sometimes I would have to be like, can I have my platoon back for a little while?
Yeah.
Teach them something, because that's because they were just so passionate about it.
Right.
Because as the senior drill, I was responsible for making sure the administrative stuff was taken care of.
Yeah.
And everything like that. But I never felt disrespected. I never felt like I had to prove myself.
Right.
Or anything like that. Not at all. At all.
When did you get to the point where you said to yourself, I could do this in my sleep. I can do this blindfolded. When did you get to that point? Because I know a lot of times it may take 1 cycle, it may take 2 cycles. But when did you get to that point was like, I'm good now. I don't need anything. Not to be cocky, but when did you get to that point?
When I was running late one day and my husband woke me up and said that I jumped out of bed in one swoop and PLF into the bathroom, parachute landing ball into the bathroom, talking about first platoon, get in line for chow. Because I was literally doing it in my sleep.
Wow. That's when you knew.
That's what I do. That's what I do, because my husband will be picking with me and get me talking in my sleep and everything, and I'd be talking to my platoon in my sleep. But probably about 3 cycles to really get a good grasp, because the same 10 weeks was the same. It was cookie cutter. The only thing that really changed were the private spaces changed, which they all started blurring together after a while. And then just maybe the location of the ranges, but we followed the same format. Every 3 weeks was red face, 3 weeks white, 3 weeks red, that last red, white, and blue. And so everything was pretty much laid out. So probably about that 3rd cycle. That's when you, as they say, that's when you got your legs up under you. Right.
So the years that you was a drill sergeant, what were those years?
I started December 2012, and then I left February 2015.
Because I recruited from 10 to 13, and I'm trying to test my memory. Have we had any conversations where you met some of my illustrious civilians that turned soldiers? I'm trying to remember. I remember. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I don't remember, but I vaguely remember it was either a conversation with you or Z. One of y'all did contact me about a recruit that I had, but that was like almost 10 years ago.
I know.
I had a few concussions since then.
Yeah, because I remember the other staff sergeant we talking about, Smith. I think she's a first sergeant now.
Yeah, she's retired now too.
Funny story. So Z just graduated the Daggone Academy.
Yes.
He said her name was on the list. And he said he was looking around, and then because I was like, I ain't seen to talk to this girl since 2000. It's been a minute, because we used to all remember, we used to have that E8 group chat.
Right, exactly, because we all came out on the list together.
Yep. We used to, and I ain't seen her, but she's retired now.
Yep, she's retired. She retired because she was at Fort Lee. She was in the process of retiring when I got to Fort Lee in 2020, November 2020.
Got you. Yeah. Okay, so drill sergeant tour is complete. What was that feeling like, knowing that I'm taking the hat off?
It was kind of melancholy. I was excited for the next step, but at the same time I was like, because drill sergeant is one of those duties where you can see all of the time, the effort, the teach, coach, mentor that we live by. You can see that come to fruition. Yep. You take this civilian with, long hair, earrings, locks, whatever, and you turn them into a soldier, and you lay that foundation for the rest of their career. So you actually see the evidence of everything, all the hard work that you put in. So that part, it was kind of sad, but I was ready to go on to the next phase of my career.
Well, where was that?
That was Vicenza, Italy.
Yes. I love
the mighty 173rd.
And those folks like to jump out of planes too, correct?
Yes.
So let's go ahead and hang out with the Italians. What was that like?
Okay, so the Italian army, they're different. Yeah, they're different. We got to train with the British Army as well. I love the Brits. They are hilarious.
Yeah.
But the herd is like the Marne Express on steroids. Because the herd, we're the reactionary force for all of Europe and the Horn of Africa.
Yep. Because that's under CTAF, right?
Yep. We had 173rd, and then CTAF was on the other side.
Yep.
So we were always training. We had 2 infantry battalions, a brigade support battalion, a field artillery unit, a cab unit, which field artillery and cab were in Germany.
Yep.
And then us, the BSB, the engineers, and the 2 infantry battalions were in Italy. So a lot of times, we would have training exercises all over Europe, everywhere from what's that, Crete and Germany. Our infantry battalions, they would jump in all over the place and things like that. So it was interesting. It was very fast paced, and I would tell every soldier that just get to Italy, play hard just as hard as you work, because you're going to work over there. You are going to work. It's always something that has to be done, especially because I was in the SPO, the support operations at that time. And so I was the ammo. I was the senior ammo person. And so I'm running ammo for the whole brigade, so everything had to come through me, even though each battalion had, an ammo rep, but they weren't my job. They weren't my MOS. So it was definitely always something to do, but I loved being in Italy. I loved the location because we did a lot of traveling. Every 4-day weekend, we were in another country.
That's what I was going to ask you. What was the I'm assuming the family enjoyed it, but what was it like? Because we talked about it being overseas. It's something being stationed in the States with your family. Okay. But when you're overseas, not military, but your blood family, going to other countries, taking the train to here, catching the plane to go here, places where as kids we read about it in the book.
Right.
Now we can touch the soil. We can shake hands with the locals. What was that from the family aspect? How did they enjoy Italy?
Oh, they loved it. Yeah. They loved it. My youngest, Nasir, I think he was 6. Let's see, 6 when we went over there. Yeah, I think he was like 5 or 6 when we went over there. And he got so spoiled that when we came back to the States, our first holiday here was Labor Day weekend. He was like, "Can we go to Spain for Labor Day weekend?" I'm like, "Dude," I'm like, "We're not in Europe anymore. We can just get on a plane and go over a 4-day weekend."
Yeah.
So he was in the Italian immersion program. So he did half of his school day in English and half of his school day in Italian.
Yeah.
But the family, they loved it. My oldest son, Brandrick, he played sports. He ran track, did football and basketball. So he traveled all around Europe with the high school team and, played other military installations as well as local teams. So the family, they loved it. They loved it. So
that's like with us. Like we did 3 years in Germany. It was just me and my daughter and my wife then. Our son wasn't born. And those 3 years we did in Germany, and God knows this, I don't remember a lot because I was in one of them Patriot units that, hey, let's go to the field. Oh, we recover, let's go back again. Right. There was so much going on. That was a bad point in my life. You know what I mean? It was very bad. I just got out the Marines. It was a lot. But I know that going to Koreas and all that, but Japan, and you said something with your son, it's almost like the residue of being in a previous location still resides in that person. Because we did 42 months in Japan. When we left Okinawa to come back here to settle everything, so I had to go to Korea for a year, my son was still asking us questions. When is Taekwondo class? Are we still going to freaking Thailand? Because, we was right in the Pacific. Right. Tokyo was like 2 hours away. Thailand, 4 hours. China, I mean, like you say, 4-day weekends. I mean, we was constantly somewhere. Yeah. Then all of a sudden, we get to Kentucky, and it's like Louisville. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh gosh. And my son, he was like going crazy because he was doing a lot of things with the local Japanese kids. Right. And, being, like you say, being immersed with that culture. And all of a sudden, we're near Louisville. Not to disrespect Louisville, but you get what I'm saying.
I grew up around that area, so I know. There's nothing.
Yeah. And so
they're always on that crime show.
Yeah. So it's like, that's why I always say those overseas assignments, especially if you can take your family, your younger kids, man, it's an opportunity I hope service members do not pass up, because they pass them up.
They do.
Take your family, man. Yes, I'm telling you. Yes.
Because we told Nasir, we was like, there's, we're like, when you get back to the States, you're going to be reading about, things that you've actually seen, and kids are seen it. I was like, we went to Pompeii, you've seen the Eiffel Tower, the
Yes.
These are things that you've seen in
Yes.
person, live and in color. You're not reading about it in some history book.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that even now is still challenging, because he's in high school now, and the kids around here, they're military kids, but some of them not.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a thing they was doing the other day. They had to do a presentation on overseas places. They had Japan, Korea, Germany, and somewhere else. So he was like, shoot, I lived in freaking Japan. Let me tell you about Okinawa. So the kids was like, you ain't never been to Okinawa.
Yep.
So he was kind of like, my son's not combative. I was like, you lucky it wasn't me, because I'm like, dude, I'll show you pictures.
Right, exactly. I know that's right. And that's what he should have did, because that's what I tell my
That's
kids.
what he ended up doing. That's what he did. I airdropped him some pictures. Why does iPhones do that? I wasn't even talking about nothing. Remember when I said airdrop? Somebody listened to me. But that's the beauty about being overseas. And I will tell you, even me and Mrs. Anderson, we lay in bed at night, man, I want to go back to freaking Japan. How we can get back? Because it's just something about, I think Italy was like what we think of Japan. That was, you always want to be there. It was just the culture, the food, the people. It was just something about it, man.
We said we were going to give San Antonio 5 years, and if it wasn't popping in 5 years, we was going back to Europe.
That's the look, LJ. That's the same thing me and Melissa said. We want to stay for the first time of our life. We're going to be stabilized in one location. Mm-hmm. Let our son graduate high school, but the minute this dude get his freaking diploma,
yes.
Hey man, do something with your life, because me and Mama, we going somewhere and we ain't letting nobody know where we at. Right.
Your son is he class of 2026?
26.
Okay, yeah, because Nasir's class of 2026. So I was 26. Like, yep. Shoot, as soon as that joker graduate,
yeah, man, I tell you, because it's just, even as a kid, and I always tell my wife this, even as a kid, I've always loved and I was intrigued by overseas life, because I loved history and geography, loved what it's like, living over there. Of course, people I grew up with, ain't nothing over there. Mm-hmm. Okay, stay in Detroit then. Don't worry about what's going on.
Small-minded people.
Yeah. So, all right. So we enjoy anything else about Italy?
I enjoyed everything. We worked really hard. It was stressful job-wise, but downtime, loved it.
Yeah, loved it. Freaking Italy, man. All right, so now we got orders to leave Italy. Where are we going next?
Okay, so I actually ended up having to leave Italy 6 months early, because my mother had a stroke, and they were getting ready to put her in a nursing home. So I requested for an early return.
Yep.
So did a compassionate reassignment. They couldn't get me down to MacDill, to Tampa, where she was. But the closest they could get me was Fort Stewart. So I went back to Fort Stewart. Yes. Back again. But again, I still don't like the location. But I did my first sergeant time there. So I interviewed with the brigade sergeant major when I got there, because the company, it was an ordnance company. They didn't have a diamond wearing first sergeant. Gotcha. They actually had a staff sergeant that was filling in, because I don't know, the first sergeant PCS or something. I don't know. So I interviewed with Command Sergeant Major Edwards, and so she frocked me, which
gotcha.
So I don't know if you're gonna explain what frocking is and all that, but
I do. I may type it up in the thing, because I can go on a tangent about that.
Yeah. So they frocked me. So they got a whole year's of first time work out of me with E7 pay.
Trust and believe that.
But I did enjoy the first year of my first sergeant time. I loved it. I had an amazing company commander, Captain Lawrence Hummel. He was a really good commander. He was prior service.
That helps a lot.
It does. I know you and Z had talked about that, and it helps.
It helps.
A whole lot.
It does.
So yeah, me and him, we took a company that was turned on its side and turned it upright, and we was rocking it. He and I were number one in the battalion. Both of us were top blocked. You know, that means a lot with that new NCOER.
Yeah, trust and believe it, dude. Yes, it do. Yes,
you know,
it
the
do.
old NCOER, it don't matter because everybody was 1-1.
Yeah, but that one there, oh no, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. So, but it was an amazing time. You know, my first year, my second year, things kind of took a little turn. I got a new commander, and it wasn't so hot.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna talk about the negative stuff.
No, I got you.
But you know, I wish him well in wherever he is, whatever he's doing.
Right.
But I know that that last year just was not good for me. I never had any negative anything in my career, and that last year, DA, they try to take me out. They try everything I worked for. They literally try to take me out. If I never experienced, my whole career, I never experienced blatant racism or sexism until that second year of my first sergeant tour. And it was rough. It was rough. So, but through it all, I still grew. You know, like I said, God has a plan. I came out stronger. I was vindicated. You know, I don't look like and I don't smell like what I went through that year of 2019. So you know, to God be the glory for that. So moving on.
No, I got you. The only thing I want to do a deep dive in that, because I definitely understand. But it's sometimes with joy when you have that that teammate that's with you side by side, you in lockstep. You guys are in lockstep. Everyone in the company, the battalion, hell, the brigade, the division can see it.
Yes,
and all of
definitely.
A sudden, and then one of you leaves. That changes everything. The climate. I'm telling you, the climate depreciates because now it's almost like that person that's still there, that was part of that incredible team. You're their only voice now.
Right.
And the other person comes in and let's change this. I don't like this. And why do we do it this way? You know, so God bless you, man, because we've all had those points in our careers, some later, some middle, some at the end, where we were challenged. The army eats its own sometimes.
It does. And that's how I knew it was time for me to retire. August 9th, 2019, I woke up and I told my husband, I said, it's time to retire. I said, we're gonna retire.
I have a great memory, but I can't remember nothing, if that makes sense. I remember when you put that post on there. I remember that you was like, it is time.
Yep.
And I tell you, and I know, because can I tell another quick story right quick?
Of course.
So I was in I always say Fort Knox I retired at, but that wasn't my last duty station. My last duty station was Camp Casey, 70th BSB in Korea, that you know. And that unit, everything I've learned in the Army from E3 all the way to freaking Master Sergeant, Korea was my culminating event. Everything I freaking learned, the good, the bad, the ugly. And when I left Korea, it was such a high octane unit, because I was in Korea during the time where the fat dude in Korea wanted to throw his rocket. So every time we doing the exercise, it was always, you know, something.
Right.
It's like 2017, 2018. And when I PCS from Korea and I got to Fort Knox, it was like everything I kind of worked for was done, because that tempo isn't there no more. Hey, this is the home. This unit, we retire over here, Master Sergeant. Hey, we doing a training meeting. You know, show up if you want to. And you know, in Korea, you know how the places like don't be there and see what happened.
Right.
It wasn't one of them type of places. And I remember when I interviewed for the first sergeant position, I was still as E7 then. I was promotable. I had a sequence number. And my sergeant major, he told me he ended up regretting it. He said, if I go ahead and let you be the first sergeant, you realize you're going to have to extend, because the first sergeant was already in 8 months in his tour, maybe 2 or 3 months in his tour. So you would have to extend just so you could do the change of responsibility. So I was like, no, I only been in Korea a day, and I don't want to stay here any longer. But it just goes to show you what would have happened if I had told Mrs. Anderson, I'm going to have to stay here longer because I want to be a first sergeant, knowing that I was tired of the Army. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hope it's making sense of what I'm saying. It's like,
of course, yes.
And then when I got here, it was such a letdown. And I was like, you know what? I need to do something to kind of get me going. So I tried to interview for the first sergeant position here at the unit at Fort Knox, but the MTO only allowed a signal guy to be the freaking first sergeant. Only signal dudes, 25 series.
Wow.
So the brigade CSM was like, well, you a 92 Alpha. And I'm like, well, I'm sure you can make a concession. I mean, you don't want to control all this stuff.
Right.
No, you got to have it because he was a signal guy. Got to have a signal guy. So I said, at that point, I told Melissa, I said, it's time. Because mentally, and I just came off 2 major knee surgeries back to back. Why am I going to try to compete for this, knowing that if I end up being this, you go down to Fort Bliss 9 months at that academy, mentally, I'm not even there anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of went off on a tangent. I always like to tell that story. You know what I mean? So I get it.
I get it. When you know when you're done, because like the little thing came up to validate your records. I was like, decline. I was like number 9. And I was like, decline.
Yeah. I don't want this.
Like,
and then when my packet initially got disapproved at HRC. Now we're at Fort Knox. HRC is like right down the street. So it was a freaking a sergeant major that was cool with my sergeant major. He said, oh, they made a mistake. He said, my sergeant, if you want to compete, we can go ahead and pull it. And I'm like, I'm walking around. I got this big, and I still got it, this big old knee full of freaking fluid. I'm like, competing for what? No, I'm not about to go down there and no. I said, it's time. I said, I've always, even when I was in the Marine Corps, I've always wanted to retire at the rank of E8. Anything else is great. I said, we're good. Life is great. It's time to move on.
Yes, definitely. Well, I made it further than what I wanted to, because I actually wanted to be an Army nurse, and drill sergeant orders trump that. So so for me to even be retiring as a first sergeant, that's a blessing, because I had no intentions of ever being a first sergeant.
That is a beautiful thing, to retire in the rank of first sergeant, E8, sergeant major. At this point, we ain't gonna even lie. It's a beautiful thing just to retire.
Yes.
Unscathed,
yes.
No nonsense attached or affiliated. Just retire. 20 plus years, you got your 100% VA that you got to wait 800 years to get, but when you
Don't
get
say that. No, so I seen you talking about you started yours in November and you got yours in April?
Look, can I tell another story?
Of course, tell a story.
I'm so thankful that me and Melissa was like, let's go, years ago, let's put some coins away in the event of, you know that, because we all the smart people do it. And when I got out, you go to your retirement briefs. Oh, you ain't gonna get paid for 120 days until you yada yada yada. So I'm like, okay, we got enough to last for a little bit, but at the end of the day, something may run out. Just the course of life. So I retired 1 November 2020. Thank God, and it's definitely, you keep things in faith. My retirement, E8 retirement, came in that next month. So I'm like, okay, we still good. Wasn't worried about money, but I was worried about that VA.
Right.
That's what I was concerned about, because I'm like, okay, how long is this going to take? Because we are accustomed to a certain lifestyle.
Exactly.
We got this in the bank. Melissa's working and all that. We're accustomed to this. And all of a sudden, you're missing a large chunk of this. It's going to be some issues.
Exactly.
2 or 3 years down the road. So I do my freaking VA. Oh, I submit this. Oh, we didn't get that. Submit it again. Oh, we lost it. How you lose something when it's digital?
Wow.
Oh, the guy that's supposed to have it, he got COVID. Because I did all my stuff like during COVID, after COVID. Oh, you got to do this. Oh, you got to go do your appointment in Nashville. You got to go to the one in Louisville. Oh, you got to go to the one in Lexington. Oh, you got to go to the one in Indianapolis. Oh, sorry, Mr. Anderson, we lost everything. Can you please do it all over?
Wow.
Frustrating. That's where my depression was kicking in. Because I was in the house by myself. Yeah, I can vent to Melissa, but she got her own work problems. She got to deal with all these GS people over there. So I'm like, there's nothing to vent to. I try to call some sergeant majors. They busy doing whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So depression really kicked in. So I said, let me just go ahead and go to these appointments, be honest about it, not cheating the system. So April 1st of 2021, finally got the 100% letter and all that stuff, and everything was great. And I always say, yeah, that took a long time, but I read some of these things on those VA sites. Cats are still waiting. And I think the reason why they still waiting is too, because sometimes you got to be a bulldog. Hey, I turned this in last week. I got documentation stating I turned it in.
Right.
And that's what was helping me. Versus, oh, well, you know, if you guys find it, call me. They ain't gonna call you.
No, I've been standing on them too, because I was supposed to be doing the benefits before discharge,
BBDs,
and I started that back in April. And these jokers, and I had caught COVID, and so they canceled all my appointments, and I'm like, hey, when are y'all gonna reschedule my appointments? And I kept calling, and you know, once you hit that 67-day mark, you have to wait until you're on the retirement list. So now I have to wait till I'm on the retirement list. But I already reached out to my local DAV, and they're helping me with all my paperwork and stuff now. So I'm like, how am I not even fully retired yet? And I'm already having issues with the VA.
I'm telling you, man. And I started the BDD process April of 20. I didn't retire till November 20. But they was like, well, we can't really do anything until you're actually officially on retirement. But the paperwork was already in, but they kept losing everything. And I'm like, how are you guys losing something that I'm sending through a freaking computer?
Right.
So I said, don't worry about it. I went to Fort Knox, the hospital. I burned a copy of all my records. I sent that disc, and I copied all the freaking paperwork. They lose that. I'm not 38 hot. I'm like 96 hot now.
Wow.
So our local DAV, God bless him, this dude was on it. He said, I told him the whole situation. He's like, give me everything you got. And I'm thankful he did that, because, you know, on the VA site, it tells you to fill out what you think is wrong with you. You don't freaking know. I remember I had this. I remember I had that. I put 7 things down.
Oh, Lord. I got like 30 songs.
Listen. And when I gave it to the VA dude, he was like, dude, you serve 2 branches of service since 94. You got more stuff. He said, give me a week. I'm going through it. That dude had like almost 45 freaking, I don't know if they call them complaints. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I think it is complaints.
45 complaints. And I was like, how did you get that from that? And he was like, that's what he said, because you guys are serving, you just don't know. You just remember the knee ache back in 05. You don't remember nothing else. But all these appointments that I had totally forgot. He had all those jokers.
And you know, sometimes they'll put stuff in your medical records and they won't even tell you that you have it.
Exactly. You be
looking at your medical records and be like, high blood pressure. I got high blood pressure.
Right. I wasn't even stationed there then.
Yeah, right.
Man. So Fort Stewart is the last place, right?
Yes.
When you took that diamond off.
No. Fort Stewart wasn't the last place. Virginia.
But was you a first sergeant in Fort Lee as well?
No, I wasn't a first sergeant in Fort Lee. I was the munitions division chief instructor.
That's right.
So I was over the ammo schoolhouse. So
take us back when you had the change of responsibility. The diamond comes off. You're a master sergeant. What was that like? And then proceed to Fort Lee.
Well, because of what was going on, I didn't even get to have a change of responsibility.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't even get to have a change of responsibility. I met with the brigade sergeant major and the brigade commander at Fort Stewart, and they were like, you know, you've been vindicated. You know, nothing's gonna happen. You know, it's been so long that we're not gonna do a change of responsibility. And so I took off my own diamond. So yeah, I didn't even get to and then they were getting ready to go down range again. And I was like, I'm putting in my paperwork. I said, soon as I'm eligible, I'm putting in my paperwork. And so I called branch, and they was like, because I was supposed to be going to Korea anyway during COVID, and they canceled them. I was like, look, I said, I just need to get out of Fort Stewart.
Gotcha.
So I went to Fort Lee, and that's when I was there. But I wasn't, even though my title was the Munitions Division Chief Instructor, I was basically just the NCOIC, like the admin, like I was like the first sergeant of the schoolhouse.
Gotcha.
Really
Gotcha.
what it is.
Gotcha.
And stuff. And so I did that, and I told him when I got there, because the brigade sergeant major wanted me to take another first sergeant position when I got there. And I was like, sergeant major, I said, respectfully, I said, if I didn't have intentions of already retiring, I said I would. I said, but sergeant major, I'm retiring. I said, I'm done. Yeah. And he was like, I was like, if you need me to, absolutely. You done exhausted all means.
Exactly.
I'll put the diamond back on.
But please ensure you exhaust all those means.
Exactly. So I worked with half civilians, half green suiters at the actual schoolhouse. Yeah. And I told my boss, who was a GS-13, I told him, I said, you'll get 1 year work out of me, and then I'm out.
Yeah.
I got there November of 2020. And then November of 2021, I submitted my packet. And then after the soldiers came back from holiday block leave, January of this year, I hadn't been back to work since. So I told him I turned over my hand receipt, everything. Yep. I told him, I said, you're going to get one solid good year out of me. I said, I will work all the way up until the end. And then after that, I'm done. So before I left Fort Lee, I had a couple of surgeries that I needed to knock out the way. So between convalescent leave and, regular leave, transition leave, permissive TDY, all of that, I have not, I think, since January, I probably put on my uniform maybe 3 times. And that's how it was for me, because like I said, I retired November 20, but February of 20, I had my last knee. I had 2 knee surgeries, 19 and 20. So 20 was the full knee replacement. Wow. And my unit, it was a blessing too. As much as I kicked and screamed about that unit, the brigade commander's policy was, if you're 6 months away from retirement, the only thing I require you, the only action I require you to call in the mornings. I'm alive, I'm good, I'm breathing. You do that every day. If you don't, hey, we're gonna pull you in. So I was like, shoot. Set an alarm to call in every day.
Sergeant Major, I'm good. But I'm telling you. Right. And my Sergeant Major, it was a blessing because he was retiring. So now you got a 9 and an 8. And the other mass sergeants, the other 7, they pissed off. Well, I gotta do this. Well, I gotta do that. And so, so now add in COVID to that. Everyone's teleworking. I'm DA now. DA's at the house. I'm chilling, doing all this other stuff. I had to go on like a Teams meeting. That's when Microsoft Teams was big. So I do like the little team, every once a week we do a little whatever. And they was like, Mass Sergeant, I'm assuming you good. See, I'm good. See y'all later. Because whatever y'all doing, I don't even care no more.
Exactly. Right.
And just to add on what you were saying, the only time I put on a uniform from February 2020 to November 2020 was probably a total of 2 times. All my out processing and my freaking retirement ceremony. Yep,
exactly.
And that was freaking it. And when I went to my retirement ceremony, my wife had got my uniform out the cleaners. Man, I put that joke on. I was like, woo, somebody been living a little too good.
Let me tell you about it. I had to go buy a new jacket just for my retirement ceremony.
Man. And I'm like, what the freak? I'm like, what the freak happened, man? The master sergeant rank was like stretched down to my wrist. I was like, and then these cats want to take master sergeant, come with you and your family. Y'all take pictures on the stage. You got the freaking CG right here and all these cats. But it was like, hey, man, you done did what you needed to do. You know what I mean? But I was like, man, life is going to be freaking great. Yes. And when I did my final out, and I want you to share yours as well. When you did all the paperwork and everything, and she was like, Master Sergeant, you are done. And when she gave me those documents, I kind of just sat there. And I walked outside of the one stop, and I kind of just looking around Fort Knox, and I'm like, it's over. It's freaking done. It was like it was a moment of I guess I want to say it was a moment of pause because all the memories, being a troop, going through the multiple branches and the leaders and people I've been stationed with and the good guys, the bad guys, all that. For those 30 seconds, I sat there and all that was just like facing me because that ride was over. And I'm sure you had that same experience as well.
It's just like, wow. I guess my biggest thing is like, who am I now? You know, for the last 23 plus years, I've had something in front of my name. Yeah. And now I'm just Juanita. Yeah. You know, it's weird. And to even hear people say my first name, it's still weird. It is.
It is. When I hear someone say Damon, you know, I was at the VA one day going to all these, and you'll be going to these VA appointments. I remember sitting there. There's a Damon Anderson. I'm sitting down on my phone, scrolling through. Damon Anderson. Scrolling on my phone. There's a Master Sergeant Anderson. I said, yes.
They know we don't know our first name.
Man, I'm like, who the frick is this Damon dude? And I'm like, dude, they talking to you, and everybody looking around. And when she said Master Sergeant Anderson, and I think they know to do that. That's that trigger.
Right.
And I hopped up and I was like, wow. But you just said something. You was like, who am I now? Wow. Who am I now?
Yeah. And I'm still trying to figure it out. You know, I got a couple of business ventures with my wellness center.
Yes. I definitely want you to talk about that.
I'm kind of it's like the last year I did a lot of different certifications. I did a microblading certification, a lactation certification, a new parent educator certification, a birth and postpartum doula certification.
I saw that.
2 classes from finishing my master's. So it's like I did a lot of stuff. And it's like, okay, well, what am I gonna do with all of this? So I backed it up. I talked to a girlfriend of mine who retired probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And she was like, perfect one craft at a time. Wow. So what I'm focusing on my birth and postpartum / new parent educator business, which is Spirit of Life Wellness Studio. Which because with that, I can encompass my yoga and my fitness into that as well, working with you know, pregnant people and their families in the whole scope of mind, body, and soul. So that's what I'm trying to focus on now. I've joined a couple of birth worker groups here in San Antonio for networking, and especially in the Black and minority community, because we need birth workers. We need to give our birthing families a voice, because there's so many disparities. We talk about the mental health disparities, you know, in our community, but we also have those maternal disparities as well, because I've been in the birthing room with, you know, my Caucasian clients, and I've been in the birthing room with my minority, either Black or Hispanic clients, and it's a different atmosphere. And I never would have believed that, because we're not used to seeing that in the military.
Exactly. And you saw that, and I'm sure it was disheartening, and now the Lord is pressing upon you. You may not fix the problem, but you can kind of enhance it from your level, from the grassroots level.
Exactly. My you know, my thing for my moms is, you know, helping them to identify themselves through empowerment. I'm here to educate, support, and empower you to be able to advocate for yourself. So that's my whole thing, is about giving you know, my mothers and my families that education, so they'll know, because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
You know? And I provide them with evidence-based support. You know, I'm not going to tell you, you know, the wives' tales or what I think should work. No, I'm going to show you evidence-based.
Exactly. So, just like how we did in military. I'm going to show you the rag.
Exactly. You know what? Exactly. I'm going to show you right here in black and white. Yes,
Yep.
yes. I didn't even think about it. Think about that correlation, but you are so right.
That's all it is.
Yes.
It's like I tell my son and daughter, I ain't telling you because I'm guessing. I'm telling you because I know.
Exactly. Hello. Exactly.
Yeah,
I tell mine something similar. I tell you, I say, I'm telling you something that I know. I ain't telling you something that I heard. I'm telling you something that I know.
Yeah, I'm telling you, overlaying everything.
www.spiritoflifewellness.com.
Because it's on your page.
Yes.
Yep. So I'm gonna grab that and I have it on the overlay and pretty and everything.
Cool.
So
cool. And I do offer virtual and in-person support. In person if you're in the San Antonio area.
Yeah. You ain't gonna be in Russia talking about, can I get some assistance?
Right. Exactly.
Better go holler at Vladimir. Well, I tell you, LJ, is there anything else you want to cover?
No, not for me, but I just want to tell you that how happy I am that you reached out. It was good to connect with you and Z again, always, even though we've been in contact over the years.
Yeah.
Especially when we came out on the 7 list, the 8 list, we kind of, followed each other along the way. And I'm thankful of your podcast because I had seen it, a couple of episodes and things, and then I really sat down and watched the whole thing with you and Z, and I see what you're doing, and it's good. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
You need to be on somebody's radio show. You need to have the DA radio show or something.
Yeah.
Podcast, you need to get out there, and everybody needs to hear your show because it's awesome, especially in the military. Those that are new to the military and those that are seasoned or those retiring. Your show offers something for every service member, no matter where they are in their career. They can glean from our experiences, and they can see what worked for us and what didn't work for us, and adapt and overcome.
That's it. And that was the whole point. I've always, and I talked about this in episodes when I first started this thing. I've always admired people behind the microphone. Not so much singers, but I always loved the guys and gals I would hear on the radio. How do they make their voice like that? What do they do? What is those buttons? I was always interested in that, but I was intimidated by it because, you don't know. And like I said, when I was going through the whole depression phase, I really felt the Lord say, hey, you got a story to tell. Are you going to keep it to yourself? And so our basement, I converted. This is like a spare bedroom. So I got like my little man cave back there. But I converted the spare bedroom. And Melissa's like, dude, why don't you just make a studio? Don't make it difficult. And I was like, woman. No, I ain't say that. But, I know you didn't. And so I was like, let me start buying things. And if you ever get a chance to look at like my first few episodes, no clue. I didn't know how to do overlays. I didn't know how to do picture in pictures. If I was describing something, I said, yeah, I bought a phone. I would show you just the picture instead of just letting it, hover over. I didn't know that, but I'm so thankful that the Lord put in my spirit to tell your story. It's like the Lord put in your spirit, hey, there's issues within our community that's not in their community. Not to be, us against them, but there's issues.
Our struggle is different than theirs.
Exactly. Use everything that you've learned through all those years of being the mother hen. What is freaking Apple, man? All those years of being the mother hen. Let's employ that. You did it in the military. How can we employ those TTPs, as we call it? Techniques, tactics, and procedures. How can we make Mother Diana better? How can we make Father Richard better? How can we make the daughter and son better? So you talk about me being proud. I'm proud of you for freaking doing that because you never wavered on faith. You never wavered on helping people. Even when you used to get on my nerve when we was in the talking career. All right, LJ, dang, I get it done. But you never freaking wavered. You always was a champion for the right thing. So I definitely appreciate that coming from you. Definitely.
Yes, thank you.
All good. All right, so if that's it, we'll conclude the episode without doing